Hello. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Dale Stanek. I am the safety manager here at Ace Doran. With me, I have Jim Collins, our president.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jim Collins, president of Ace Doran. As Dale said, thank you all for calling in today. I know sometimes you feel like you're just being absolutely beat over the head with this safety message, but we want you to realize that it is important to us as a company, to us as individuals, and to you as individuals. So, for starters, I'd like to remind you, if you are driving at the moment, do not be on using a handheld device. You should be on a Bluetooth. So with that said, we want to do that to be safe. I'd also like to just say thank you for all the hard work that all of you do. As I mentioned at the Driver Appreciation Day last week, being an owner-operator or driver of a commercial motor vehicle is not an easy way to make a living. And in fact, it's getting more and more difficult. So please know that we recognize everything you guys do for us every day. We appreciate it. And again, thank you for calling in today. So that being said, Dale, do you want to talk a little bit about the purpose for the call and get us started?
Yes, thank you, Jim. We will be taking questions at the end of this call. If you would like to ask a question, you can hit *3 during this call, and we have an operator who will take your question and then forward it to us. The reason that we're having the call today is we've seen a steady increase in our unsafe score this year. At the beginning of the year, our score was in the mid-20s. Last month, our score has now moved into the mid-50s. The threshold for the unsafe basic is at 65%. A few months ago, we started to send text messages to all of our drivers to increase awareness campaign to get everyone to realize what's going on with our driving fleet. We're trying to stop what's going with the violations to get corrective steps out there to reduce it or prevent it from happening again. ACE drivers has significantly added to our violation totals in the past 2 months through speeding and seatbelt violations. I have spoken to a lot of these drivers who've expressed concerns about other unsafe motors on the highway, either commercial or passenger car. While I understand that it is a concern for you, I would suggest that you use defensive driving to help prevent any accidents, but we still can't ignore that seatbelts and speeding violations are measures on which we are graded on by the FMCSA. Because the truth of the matter, these rules are what we're judged against our peers. The other things that we have noticed is that once a driver is pulled over, an officer will look at our CSA scores and decide what type of inspection they will do. Typically, they're going to do a driver and vehicle inspections. That means they're going to look at our logs and equipment. One of the individuals who was pulled over last week for a seatbelt violation picked up additional violations for logs and tires. Jim, did you want to mention a few things?
Yeah, speaking of seatbelts, I just wanted to let you guys know there are basically 5 unsafe driving violations that are essentially cause for immediate termination. And I think it's important that we all understand exactly what those are. So Dale mentioned seatbelt violations, and also as Dale mentioned, one of the things that we've noticed with the seatbelts is, that's a visible thing that an officer can see. He pulls one of the guys over for a seatbelt infraction, and then it winds up leading to other violations as well, or a full level 1 inspection. So again, wearing your seatbelt properly is number 1. A second violation, very serious, is the use of a handheld cell phone while operating a commercial motor vehicle. Again, we had one of those just last week or the week before. Again, very easy for the officer to see, and there wasn't much we could do to save the driver. So again, just to reiterate, seatbelts, handheld devices. Number 3 is speeding, 11 to 14 miles an hour over the speed limit. That's a very serious violation that we have a hard time working around. Also on the speeding front, over 15 miles an hour, obviously that goes without saying. So essentially anything 11 to 14 is a very serious violation, anything over 15 the same. And the last of those 5 that I wanted to mention specifically were speeding in a construction zone. So that's another thing that we ask that you, please pay attention to. I think you all know, and we certainly have noticed that, professional drivers are under greater and greater scrutiny all the time, and expected to operate at a level above the motoring public. Fair or unfair, that is what it is. So speeding in a construction zone is a very noticeable violation, and one that you really need to be careful about. Dale?
Thank you, Jim. I'd just like to mention again, if you do have any questions, you can hit *3, and an operator will take your questions and forward them to us. Moving along with that, so there are 7 CSA categories in which we are graded on by the FMCSA. We need to watch and ensure all of our scores in these categories are below the various thresholds. We are currently over in the hours of service and vehicle basics. We cannot afford to have another basic like unsafe to go over. That raises our profile with the FMCSA. More basics over the thresholds to them equates unsafe carry, which obviously is what we do not want. Some of the other fallbacks from that is our customers will ask for our CSA scores when looking at getting new business, and we obviously want to keep and receive business that we're getting from them. Jim has mentioned a few times to me about customers who will ask for our CS scores when we're bidding additional business. Jim?
Yeah, that is a fact. Years ago, when it came to negotiating rates or soliciting new customers, there was very little talk about CSA scores and those kind of things, but I can tell you that now, especially our bigger customers, the bigger steel mills, processors, the larger corporate accounts, the early part of any of those negotiations often involves they want to know what our CSA scores are, and if we don't meet a certain threshold, they're not interested in doing business with us. And the other thing that we're seeing more and more this year is they want to know our E-log implementation plan, and actually that started, I would say, early this calendar year. So I know a lot of us felt, a lot of the drivers, and that maybe we started too early down the E-log road, but I think now that we're just about there, we see that the ruling is not going to be overturned. Frankly, I'm thankful that we started when we did, because a lot of the major shippers want to know, where we are, and they want to be assured that we'll be ready by December 17th. And thanks to the cooperation of all the people that are on the phone and hard work by the safety department, we are in compliance. So, yeah, CSA scores and E-log implementation are things we're asked about a lot by our customers.
Thank you, Jim. As I mentioned earlier in the start of this conference call, that we've seen an increase in unsafe violations via ACE drivers compared to Bennett drivers or BME drivers. I just wanted to point out, in the last 6 weeks, we've had 9 unsafe violations compared to 7 from BME drivers. The majority of these violations are speeding, 6 to 10, and then we do have the 2 failed seat belts, and then we had a driver with a handheld. Obviously we need to do a better job of preventing that type of activity. As I mentioned, with those additional violations, it increases our profile for DOT officers to pull us over and then do additional inspections for that. Go ahead.
You know what, Dale, if I might add too, just honestly, guys, in the last few weeks, the 9 ACE violations versus the 7 BME violations, it just, that wasn't the pattern for a long time, and frankly, that's part of what led us to organize this call for today. It just seems like the last 3 or 4 weeks we've really had an inordinately high number of violations on the ACE side, and we just value you guys too much, your driving records, the effect that it has on you personally, and honestly, obviously, the effect that it has on the company. And so we wanted to make sure that you're aware. I think sometimes people think, when we're getting those text messages and hearing all this about safety, that, oh, that doesn't apply to me, or, oh, that's probably mostly those Bennett trucks or whatever. And honestly, as Dale said, the last several weeks it's been more on the A side than on the Bennett side. So we just encourage you to stay vigilant and stay focused and keep these things in mind. And again, we're sorry to feel like we're beating you over the head with this information, but it is important. And then the only other thing I would want to say about that is when you look at the driving history of the trucks that we've had, the drivers that we've had with these violations, it's really all over the board. We've got one or two on here, guys that have only been with us a short time. But frankly, there are a number of drivers on here that have been with us for a very long time, 20 years plus, 30 years plus, and I believe in one case 40 years, right, Dale,
yep.
if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
So I guess the point is there's nobody that's exempt from this. There's nobody that we can put the finger and blame. Oh, it's all the young guys, it's all the old guys. It's a lot of everybody. So we just have to stay vigilant and stay focused.
Thank you, Jim. The one thing I do want to mention to everyone is if you do get an inspection or a ticket, please call that in immediately. We want to hear from you, good or bad. Obviously, we love hearing about the good ones. We pay you money, $200 for clean inspections, but we also want to know about the bad ones. I'd rather hear it from you and then discover it through the FMCS portal a day or two later. The one thing I do want to mention is after talking to these drivers who picked up the violations, a few of them kind of alluded to me that they only got a warning. It carries lesser weight in their mind. That is not the case. Warning violations carry the same weight as one with a citation. It has the same CSA points. It'll stay on your record just as long as if it was a citation. Jim, did you just want to mention one more time our zero tolerance?
Yes. First and foremost, the biggest problem we've had of late would be seat belts. So again, please, we ask you to, and I should mention too, as far as seat belts go, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dale, but I think in maybe at least one of the cases, the driver actually had the seat belt, the lap belt portion on, I think, but the shoulder harness restraint part was not on properly, and that's where the citation came from. So it's not only a matter of just having on the lap belt portion, but you have to wear your seat belt properly. One other thing that someone pointed out to me, which I never really thought about, but when you are pulled over, or if you're pulled over, I should say, don't take your seatbelt off until the officer gets there and you open the door, and that way he can actually see that you are properly wearing your seatbelt. I don't think it happened to one of our guys, but I've heard the story where, the officer was coming up the side of the truck, the driver takes his seatbelt off to start getting his logbook together or whatever it might be, and then he winds up getting a violation for not having a seatbelt on. So just again, keep that seatbelt on. Number two is improper use of a cell phone or handheld device, so make sure you're using your Bluetooth technology. Number three, speeding 11 to 14 miles an hour over. Number four, speeding over 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. And number five, speeding in a construction zone. So those are all very serious infractions that we ask you to stay mindful of, and please, at all costs, try to avoid.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. So how do we improve our CSA scores? Just a reminder, CSA score stays on a driver's record for 3 years, and it's on the carriers for 2. The easy answer is that we need to have less violations coming in every month than what is going out the door. So the reporting period is monthly. Every month, the FMCSA takes our violation, compiles them, ranks them against our peers, assigns us points, and then that's where our scores fall in. So we need to do better with getting less of these violations. The way it works with our peer group is, if you remember school, sometimes you're going to get graded on a curve. That's what happens here for all of the violations. There will always be carriers in the bottom portion of these categories, and we just do not want to be that carrier in the bottom of any of these categories. We have to do better than our competition when it comes to speeding violations, wearing seatbelt, obeying traffic control devices, making sure we're not having the phone up to our ear while we're driving. If we don't have a Bluetooth, then we shouldn't be on the phone. So we do have a couple questions starting to come in the queue. Did we want to talk a little bit about some of the seatbelt safety things, perhaps, or start with questions?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about
Okay.
the seatbelt. The state of Indiana, hopefully you all got the word this week, is conducting a crackdown, and one of the things that they're looking for are seatbelt violations. So they sent us a little notice about that, and a couple of things about it that honestly I never thought of or never realized, the value of wearing a safety belt. So safety belts are proven to help drivers maintain control of the vehicle when involved in a crash, thus minimizing the chance of injury or death to you or any passengers you may have or other motorists. So the point of that is that even in the event of some sort of a crash, it keeps you in a position to hopefully keep the vehicle under control, which is an important reason to wear it. They can also prevent you from being knocked unconscious in some kind of a crash, so that's something that's important. And statistically, they say the driver is 4 times more likely to be fatally injured if you're thrown from your vehicle as a result of a crash. So again, the safety belt can help you in that area as well. So the only thing I'd like to mention, Dale, and I've mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, I just ask that you guys please understand that, because if I were in your position, I know these constant safety reminders, we do get some complaints from some drivers about the text messages and the constant safety messages, but the purpose for this is multifold, and again, one is to protect you, your personal safety, your driving record, the members of the motoring public, which all of us have family and friends that are out there on the road, and also the company, obviously. So there's a lot of reasons to adhere to these safety messages, and again, we know that you're hit with them daily, and just please understand we're trying to protect you as well as trying to protect the company, and we appreciate those of you that are heeding all of these reminders. So thank you for being safe out there every day.
All right, thank you very much, Jim. Just a reminder, *3 for questions. We do have a couple of questions in the queue right now. I will go ahead and read the questions. So we can he's got the questions. I can take them, Patrick. So Michael Thane is asking us if the speed limits go to court and gets the tickets dismissed, remove speeding violation for larger fine. What I think Michael is asking is, if you do get a citation along with your inspection, you do have the right to go to court and challenge that. If you beat it in court, then the FMCSA has to honor that new ruling, and then they will reduce your violation on your CSA score to match what is given in court. If it's totally dismissed, then it goes off your record. If it's reduced, it'll be moved down to a lower violation. But thank you for that. It's a really good question, Michael. Jeff Yelp has asked us, what is the correlation between e-logs and speeding? Are drivers trying to beat the clock? I don't know, Jeff, if there is a correlation in that yet. I've kind of heard that from a couple of guys where, if they get delayed at a shipper, they are trying to make up that time. I would say that is not an acceptable choice. We're still held by the standards of following the speed limit. I would suggest if things are getting slow and you need to get moving, to get operations involved and see if they can help that process and get you loaded or unloaded, whatever the case may be, because the nature of the beast is that we are graded Obviously, with e-logs, we're held to the standard that we have to follow those regulations, and we can't speed either. So.
Yeah, I think in some cases the e-logs, haven't necessarily changed. We had a speeding ticket maybe a month ago where the driver was speeding, and his explanation to the safety department was he knew he had to get empty by the next day, which was a Friday, or he wasn't going to be able to get home for the weekend. So the fact that he was on e-logs in that case really had nothing to do with why he was speeding. He admitted he was speeding because he was trying to make up time to get empty, which is understandable, but at the same time, I guess there is no justifiable reason for breaking the speed limit. So I'm not sure that the e-logs, at least in all cases, that there's a correlation with speeding.
Yeah. Any additional questions? *3.
One other thing while we're waiting to see if there's any other questions, I did want to add that we hope that you guys find this time to be valuable. We do find it valuable to be able to spend this time with you talking about some of these safety issues. So with that being said, we intend to continue this call on a monthly basis. Today happens to be Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, right, the last Wednesday of the month. So I think we are going to shoot to do this the last Tuesday of every month. Wednesday, I'm sorry, I apologize. And that'll be like this call. This is an Ace Doran call. Bennett also holds the call. I believe theirs is on the second Tuesday of the month. Not that you're expected to remember all this, but theirs is the second Tuesday, I believe at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The reason I know that is that I have to be in Georgia to be on that call in a couple of weeks. But we encourage you to participate in both of those calls. Again, this one that we're holding on Wednesday afternoons at the end of the month will be an Ace Doran call. And then the BME call, which certainly includes the Ace Doran drivers, is the second Tuesday of every month, and we encourage you to be a part of both of those. But we will send out reminders on the ACE call for sure.
Besides safety issues, we are looking at the opportunity of having some other individuals through the ACE ranks to come on and share their thoughts on some other items besides safety too.
Right. Yeah, we'll have, I don't know, maybe we can talk Rocky Cole, our illustrious operations manager, to make an appearance, or Chad Leiter perhaps, or Jason O'Brien out of safety, some different things so you don't have to listen to Dale and I every month. We'll try to break it up and get some other people involved as well.
Well, Jim, it appears we haven't had any additional questions come in through the queue yet, so at this point I think we should just go ahead and end it. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for calling in. I appreciate you spending time with us. I know how busy your days are, but this is very important information that we needed to share with you to get some behavioral changes in place to obviously improve our safety record.
Yeah, thank you all for your time today, as Dale said, and please, if you have any questions about anything that was mentioned today, please feel free to reach out to Dale, anyone in the safety department, or for that matter, feel free to reach out to me as well. So thank you again for your time today, and thank you again for your professionalism and everything that you do for Ace Doran, and stay safe.
Thank you.